All right. Well, I think we're going to get going because everybody else has stuff to do. We're all on business schedules at the end of the day, and we want to finish this thing at 1 if we can. So, with that, I welcome all of you and thanks. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the MBN Michigan Economic Forecast presentation. I'm Chris Holman, of course, CEO of the Michigan Business Network. And I will tell you, it's kind of interesting because what you're seeing is, of course, a brand new format that COVID-19 has forced us to, and we've found that this is wonderful. And normally, in the past, and Amy Kleckner up in Marquette can attest to this, we have gone at great expense, at a lot of mileage, a lot of time, and some room nights around the state to catch 6 different and be part of 6 different economic forecasts so that we could compile all those in the past and put those on our website so people could go on there and see what's happening in Marquette and in Traverse City and in Kalamazoo, or the Southwest sector. And this year it forced us to be creative, and we thought, why don't we put this whole thing together at one time? And so you will see that a couple of these reports were pre-recorded in the last day or two, I might tell you. And so they're very fresh, but there may be not a clumsy, but we hope a little slower only segue to those presentations. But these are all up to date, and the vast majority of them are live. And I want to thank our presenters today for making themselves available to do this in a live fashion. If you happen to miss this thing, or someone you really want to see it needs to see it, this will be housed, of course, on the MichiganBusinessNetwork.com for you to go pick up at a later date. We have a good percentage of our guests that are registered for this webinar, and many more that are watching us live on our website and also on Facebook Live. And we know that we're going to have a very healthy audience that will be picking this up on our website at a later date. So COVID inadvertently has helped us reach an even larger, not only numbers, but geographic audience than normal. So we're appreciative of that piece of it. Now, if you lose your connection during the event, then you have to rejoin us using the same unique link that you used to join initially. As a reminder, if you just jump into Zoom, the meeting ID is 811-0125-7250. And the passcode is 149802. So you can come back in that direction as well. Now, if you want to ask questions, post your questions during the discussion in the chat on Zoom, or email Sarah at MichiganBusinessNetwork.com, and we'll get those answered and sent back to you as soon as we can. In addition, we're going to share your questions and answers from the entire audience, and we're going to post them on the website. So if you have a question and you get the answer, that takes care of your needs. But a lot of time there's knowledge and information there that could be shared with everybody. So afterwards, if you want to go on the website and see who asked what and what the answers were, we'll be able to post those probably in the next week once we get those answers from the presenters. So let's get to it. Our first presentation is very hot off the press, results of the Michigan Future Business Index. This is usually presented by one of the AF Group executives that sponsored the survey, and we want to go out of our way to thank them because they've been with this survey for a long time, and we appreciate what they've done because it wouldn't be possible without it. So it's usually presented by an AF Group executive. This year, however, it's going to be presented by the gentleman who actually conducts the survey in the field, Paul King at ROI Insight. So Paul King, if you would, my friend, give us the latest Michigan Future Business Index.
Today I'll be presenting the latest results from the Michigan Future Business Index, the fourth quarter of 2020. As you may remember, we retooled the survey back in May to address the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on small business here in the state of Michigan. The latest results show that there is reason for hope and optimism as small business owners may be seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. The results here do show some improvement since May. We surveyed 600 small to medium-sized businesses here in the state of Michigan. The Michigan Future Business Index is produced by the Michigan Business Network and underwritten by the Accident Fund Insurance Company of America. We are very thankful for the Accident Fund for underwriting this important survey, and the data that comes from it helps us keep our finger on the pulse of small business here in the state of Michigan. And the Michigan Business Network does a great job of producing this, has been for many years. Myself at ROI Insight, Paul King, have been involved with the Michigan Future Business Index now. It'll be 10 years next year, so I am proud to be doing this work for both Michigan Business Network and the Accident Fund. The credibility interval on this survey is plus or minus 4.7% or less on the total sample. Today I will provide just a brief overview of the data and pull out some of the highlights. But if you would like to look at more of this survey, please feel free to visit the Michigan Business Network's website at michiganbusinessnetwork.com to download the rest of the survey. Let's start with satisfaction of the economy. Let's look at 1 year ago today. Satisfaction was at 82%, a near record level. Back in May, when we were in the height of these stay home, stay safe order, that number dropped from 82 to 11% satisfied with the economy. 73% said dissatisfied. The number has now improved a bit. The satisfaction level has gone up since May to 28% now, and 55% saying total dissatisfied. Obviously not a great result, but it is moving in the right direction. Hopefully we get back to that 82 number where we were before. We also asked folks about their business performance before and during the pandemic. 81% said that their business performance was pretty good or excellent just before the pandemic. Then back in May, it plummeted to 8%, saying that their business was in pretty good or excellent shape. 77% said it was in not so good or poor shape. The numbers have improved slightly since May. 27% say they are now in pretty good or excellent shape, and 50% say they are in not so good or poor shape. 94% of the folks reporting say that they are open now. That is up from 65% reporting that in May. The industries getting hit hardest are the restaurant and food service industry, where 67% said that they are in bad shape, and nonprofit and healthcare, saying 61% saying that they are in bad shape. In this next question, we asked folks about their expectations for getting back to normal after COVID. As you can see, there is reason for hope here as optimism is increasing. In May, 39% said that they were optimistic about getting back to normal. Now in November, 52%, a clear majority, are optimistic about getting back to normal after COVID. Those who are pessimistic, that group has shrunk from 44% in May to 31% now. Reasons for optimism are their loyal customers and pent-up demand, also potential opportunities for growth, and their great staff that they say has been staying busy and positive. Reasons for pessimism is the loss of customers, actually, and their concern for government overreach and overregulation. Those in the insurance and finance industry are most optimistic, with 60% saying they are. Also, healthcare and nonprofit are also not optimistic here, most optimistic at 63%. And those in food service and manufacturing are least optimistic. The key takeaways regarding hiring and wages, nearly 2/3 now say that they have not laid off any employees, and more than 8 in 10 say they have not cut wages. They cite their ability to allow more people to work from home or work remotely as a positive thing and being able to keep their staff on board. And they also believe that working remotely will continue to be part of the new normal going forward, as it has met or exceeded their expectations with regard to being productive at work. More than 8 in 10 now say that they have kept their benefits the same. They have not reduced benefits. Those, again, areas that are reporting the most layoffs are in the restaurant and food sectors. And also business services and retail have recorded the most decreases in wages and benefits. Key takeaways regarding sales, profits, cash flow, and customer retention, all of which are still in the negative category, but they are improving, especially since May, where we hit rock bottom. 70% of those reporting said that sales have decreased, which that number of those reporting decreases has shrunk from 86% in May. 64% now say profits have decreased, down from 84% in May. 63% have said cash flow has decreased, which is down from 83% in May. And 42% now say customer retention has decreased, which is down from 47%. And now a plurality say customer retention has stayed the same, all moving in the right direction as well. And again, food service seems to be getting hit the hardest here. Most in the food service industry, 83% reporting sales decreases. Also, 63% in the food service sector record customer retention decreases. How are they surviving during the pandemic, and how are they preparing to thrive after? Nearly 90% have applied for some sort of financial assistance during the pandemic. That's up from 79% in May. Nearly all have been approved, and a majority, nearly 6 in 10, are happy with the loan process. More than 7 in 10 say they're either very well, or somewhat well prepared for post-COVID business world. And nearly 2/3 say they're enthusiastic about remaining in business after it's over. This was an important highlight here. Nearly 2/3 expect to fully recover sometime next year. However, there are just over a quarter who say their recovery will not happen until 2022, and 17% are uncertain they'll ever recover. Another positive movement here in the survey, we asked people if they believe their business will emerge weaker or stronger from COVID-19. Back in May, 21% said that they would emerge stronger. That has gone up to 37% now. 59% said they would emerge weaker back in May. That has shrunk to 42% here in November. Healthcare and nonprofit business sectors have the highest percentage believing they'll emerge stronger at 41%, while those in the food service, again, industry, restaurants, are most likely to believe that they'll emerge weaker. 46% said weaker there. And then finally, who do they point to with regard to providing most of the challenge here for recovery? They tend to blame government response for making recovery more challenging. 7 in 10 believe that small business voices are largely not being heard by lawmakers, which is up from 63% in May. And nearly 6 in 10 say the state's response to COVID-19 has been too strong, while 43% say it has been either about right or not strong enough. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I thank you so much for listening, and I thank all of you who participated in this survey. It is important that we do hear the voices of small business so we can pass it on to those stakeholders in the state of Michigan who are making decisions that affect all of small business. Thanks again.
Well, that's exactly right. We do need to be heard, and the numbers make every survey like this more accurate. And so we do thank you so much for participating, and hope you'll use this tool to help make decisions about your next 6 to 12 months of operation. Next up, Amy Klickner, CEO of Lake Superior Community Partnership. That we're venturing up to the Great White North now. And Amy, it is absolutely always good to have you on. How you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you, Chris. And we do miss you guys coming up here and getting to spend some time. And I know it's one of your favorite locations, especially when you get snowed in and have to stay an extra day. So you got to miss that. But I do love the format and appreciate you're doing it this way so that we can all, hear live the other regions' reports as well. So thank you for including me. Thank you for including the UP. I know a lot of my colleagues are on the call today as well. So I wanted to start by reminding everybody what the UP looks like here. And I would use my hands, of course, if you weren't all from Michigan. But the Lake Superior Community Partnership is the economic development agency in Marquette County, which is part of the highlighted area. We also provide services in Baraga County and support the Alliance in Dickinson County. Next slide, please. And just to orient you to our region, which again is more rural, the UP population has bounced around 300,000 for decades and decades. I look forward to the census numbers to see if that's changed, but I'm not expecting that it will be far out from, again, the 300,000 range. Marquette County is the largest county at about 66,000 folks here. But just to remind you, the Upper Peninsula is 29% of the landmass of Michigan and only 3% of the population. So we oftentimes when we try to pull our, work together to pull our voice from a public policy perspective, oftentimes it's a little difficult when you're only 3% of the population, but we do collaborate and work well in that area. Known for a lot of our, advanced manufacturing, natural resources, not only in the tourism type and recreation, but also in the extraction area. Next slide. So trying to recap 2020 without swearing, it was difficult to put the bullet points down. But again, and similar to what everybody else had to do, our businesses in the Upper Peninsula had to do the pandemic pivot. And I think for economic developers, business retention and expansion, BRE, is kind of our bread and butter anyway. And we spend about 80% of our time and resources with existing businesses. And so this was really, truly where we spent almost 100% of our time since the pandemic. Typically, we work with about 500 or so businesses a year in Marquette County in our organization. We'll hit 1,000, right over 1,000 this year, just because of the sheer need of what our businesses have been going through. And I would venture to even add a second E to business retention and expansion this year, include entrepreneurship, because believe it or not, throughout this whole time, we have seen an increase in startups, which is kind of that spark, that light, that hope, that glimmer of something. And so it's been very, very interesting to see how our numbers in startups have also doubled this year. We had a pretty smooth summer, even though, with the different types of regulations and constrictions on businesses, but tourism was really robust up here. And our businesses were doing very well. Some of them even reporting that they had better Julys and Augusts than they did in 2019, believe it or not, even at 50% capacity. Kind of slid into October. Our unemployment rate was down, very similar, a little bit above 3% as 2019. And our labor force even grew a little bit. But then after that, it kind of went downhill very quickly. And in particular, our service and retail industry has really plummeted. And I can tell you right now, we're talking to businesses in those areas every day that are about to close their doors. And if you saw in, I think it was Mears yesterday, Justin Winslow from the Restaurant and Lodging Association, they put out their survey results, very grim. And, talking about, 89% of their association members' sales decrease, 33% say they won't make it in the next 6 months if a package at the federal level doesn't come through. And I mean, that's what we're seeing here in the Upper Peninsula as well. Next slide. So challenges, Of course, reinvention has been a challenge for our businesses. All the new protocols, the regulatory changes that constantly change. So we as economic developers have spent a lot of time in the communications area and switching all of that to digital. I remember, talking about, will we even need, my marketing team saying, do you need a COVID page on the website? Do you really need a whole page for that? And it's obviously turned out to be a life of its own. Workforce and infrastructure like broadband to meet the challenges continue to be issues. Next slide. Reinvention is also an opportunity, though, and we've seen our businesses be resilient and be remote ready and make the change. And we've moved to a people attraction. We can provide remote work here, and we can bring the talent up here, and people can take a look at working and living and playing in the Great Upper Peninsula. Next slide. Lastly, in 2021, it's retain, rebuild, recover. A talent attraction will be, considerably just as important as it has been. And I know in Dickinson County, they will talk about the dramatic need for talent, and it has happened and been a need all year. We're seeing some movement in aerospace, cybersecurity, and technology types of companies. And again, I think rural America will be center stage moving forward with some great opportunities because of COVID, the remote work, the safety aspect, and those types of things. So we look forward to getting out of 2020 and rebuilding and recovering from this. So thank you.
Amy, thanks for joining us. A couple of quick things. One is that broadband issue is huge, and especially in your area. You're absolutely right. It keeps us from being inclusive with startups, et cetera. Are the startups up there coming out of tech transfer? Because you've got like Lake Superior, Northern, and Michigan Tech.
Yep, we're getting both the service industry and the tech transfer type. Invent at NMU and our Innovate Marquette are seeing a lot of those types of tech transfers. Cybersecurity has been big for us. Just announcing a cybersecurity company that has come here and working directly with Northern Michigan University for their talent. So a lot of good things, a lot of very positive things. But again, when we look at some of the hard hit industries and sectors, they change the dynamic of your community if you lose a lot of that too. So we have a lot of work ahead, but I, for one, would rather look at the glass half full and say we've got even more opportunity than we have challenge.
Yeah, good attitude. And thanks for the great work you do up there. Trust me, we'll be up this summer. We miss the UP. We love it.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thank you, Amy Kleckner. Next up from Traverse Connect, President and CEO, Warren Call. Warren, how are things?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate the opportunity. Obviously, Northern Michigan had a tough 2020, as did every region of the state. But as we close out the year, we actually see some bright spots. But there is a mountain to climb. We had a tourism-based drawdown that was tough to deal with. But we saw incredible teamwork in the face of that adversity. Northern Michigan, as you know, runs on small businesses. And our communities and partners came together across the region to support our companies in a very big way. So there is some good news to share. We had great regional coordination and communication from our, for economic recovery operations. One of the things that really helped, I think, as we went into the spring was we worked as a community across really the entire region to develop and implement a stay safe to stay open messaging campaign for Northern Michigan. That combined with a regional resiliency fund that provided grants to hundreds of small businesses did help kind of weather the storm. So our local manufacturers rallied in a huge way to retool, and that, with producing ventilator parts, PPE supplies, and medical tents, people don't realize that we actually had a lot of manufacturing that never stopped. That now combined with the fact that we were able to eventually successfully reopen regions 6 and 8 for the summer really helped, because we did get a little bit of a rebound in tourism. And that was partly due to more kind of drive-to location vacations this year. We benefited to some degree from that. It still was a tough year, but our companies saw a lot of people that they hadn't seen before. So people that may have gone to Europe or out west for vacation came to Traverse City instead, and that was a bright spot in an otherwise very difficult year.
Yeah, well, it has been challenging, and but you guys have done a nice job of making granting available too. Set up a few years back. That's a nice little impetus that you have.
Yeah, and we continue to have strong development in our kind of traditional areas of agriculture. We also have a lot of bright spots in some of the kind of the new focus areas around tech, trade, and creative industries. That's really been the focus over the last several years.
I talked to a couple of your vendors too, and they're not having an all bad year actually. Exclusive of the tourisms that usually come, but their shipments seem to be pretty good. So let's talk now about 2021. What are you seeing out there in the future?
Well, as I said, there is some bright spots. Our small businesses in our communities did this year and plan to do next year what they do best, which is creative problem solving. So we've got some exciting things on the infrastructure front. The rollout of fully symmetrical gigged fiber in Traverse City, for example. Traverse City Light and Power has initiated phase 1 of that, and that's downtown. As we go into next year, the rollout of the full second phase, which is going to cover the remainder of the electrical network. That's good for us, and this project joins other things happening kind of around this area with Great Lakes Energy's TrueStream internet program, as well as the ongoing efforts from Michigan Broadband Services. So as you look at kind of the rebound in our great local businesses, the resiliency, the development of some of that broadband internet, it really serves to reinforce some of the trends that we have been excited about for a while. And our regional strategic planning efforts over the past few years prioritized talent attraction and mobile entrepreneurs. And so we just launched December 1st, Michigan's Creative Coast, which is a regional placemaking initiative designed to promote our region and our creative economy here up north. So it highlights this area as not just a great tourism location, but as a year-round economic destination. So attracting professionals from other parts of the country, attracting innovative businesses and mobile entrepreneurs. And we do that by underscoring the existing momentum in our tech and creative sectors, and frankly, the attractiveness of remote work opportunities. And really, again, when we talk about silver linings this year, one of those silver linings has been that the strategy rollout of the things I just mentioned was already in process, and it went live as we got into kind of mid 2020 and moved toward 2021. And so as people began to think about the fact that they could work from anywhere, they were looking at this new rollout that we were starting to develop. And that's in conjunction with other regional and state level partners to, again, focus on that attraction effort. So as we look at 2021, even though the pandemic has wreaked havoc across the economy, we see some rebound. And we stand to benefit perhaps as more people look to work from elsewhere. Our local newspaper did a study mid-year of mail forwarding requests. I'll share a little bit of kind of in the weeds data with you. Mail forward requests to the Traverse City area. Now, it's normal to see Florida and Arizona, on that list as snowbirds return, but it looked a lot different this year. We saw a huge influx from all over the country: Austin, Chicago, Cincinnati. Requests from New York State went from 50 mail forwarding requests in 2019 to over 220 mid this year. And Illinois and California were both up over 50%. And then there was another half dozen states that had increases of 20%. So, and that in kind of goes along with a lot of people from kind of closer to home, Detroit, Grand Rapids, and Lansing, looking at can they move their operation? Can they move their remote job? Can they move their entrepreneurial idea up north? So we're actually really looking forward to that. And obviously it's had a huge impact on residential real estate, demand for construction, et cetera. But it's it's that combination of mobile technology and an attractive quality of life we see could be exciting for next year.
I'll tell you what, Warren, you guys have always done a great job of taking what is probably one of the premier vacation sites on the planet and putting a real vibrant economy with it. And that's why you're appreciating all these people who want to relocate their businesses up there. That's a great report, my friend. Keep doing the right things because you guys obviously are.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate the opportunity. Have a great New Year and holiday season.
Yeah, and thank you to Warren Call for making the time for that recording yesterday, as a matter of fact. So next up, old buddy of mine from MEDC days, James McBride, President and CEO of the Middle Michigan Development Corporation. And James, I'm trying to figure out if that's a COVID-19 beard or a Christmas beard. Jim, you got yourself muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, all right. It's kind of a combination of both. But thanks for this opportunity, Chris. Great to see you and everybody here. What I've been really doing is looking at comparing last year with this year. And I really liked Amy Klickner's phrase, the pandemic pivot. Hadn't heard that one, and that's really appropriate for what we've had to do in economic development this year. But looking back last year, Chris, we had in Isabella and Clare counties 135 retention calls, with businesses that we would call base economy jobs in the area. This year, the number of company visits spiked to 518 so far. We're still compiling that number. So we ended up calling on a lot of companies that we traditionally haven't called on before. And last year, 309 specific company assists. And this year it's 1,175. Again, not a complete number because there's still a few weeks and we're still compiling that. So why is this? Why did we have such a big spike? Well, we're one of 15 organizations. There's others on the call here. Birgit Close is on, Amy Klickner, Bob Tresice I saw, Birgit Close, and a few others. 15 organizations were asked by the MEDC to step up and distribute funds to a lot of the non-traditional types of businesses, restaurants, bars, salons, et cetera. So we had back in March the relief program. Then we had the Match on Main program, and we applied for that on behalf of City of Mount Pleasant and provided funding for 22 businesses in downtown Mount Pleasant. Then we had the relief loans, and we had 4 of those in our area. Additional grant funding came in from Dow Chemical Bank, and Clare Community Foundation for our area. We were able to help another 35 businesses. And then the big one was the Restart program, which it's just really coming to a conclusion. Our organization had to distribute $3.5 million in 6 counties here in the mid-Michigan area. One organization that really helped us with that very much was Greater Gratiot Development, and I know Jim Wheeler's on the call. So a lot of our focus this year has been getting grant money out the door to a lot of these small businesses that have been hit by the pandemic. And again, that's why we've had so many company visits, so many company assists, unprecedented level of interaction with these types of businesses for our organization. And it's really, I'll be honest, stretched our team pretty thin because we have a small team, but we were able to get the job done. On the good news side, and as we look forward to the future, let me just say that I was surprised that our total of new investments was way up this year, due primarily to a couple of big ones. We had the Apex Energy DTE wind project in northern Isabella County. That's almost $100 million in investment, a lot of jobs, construction jobs, and that will leave behind 20 permanent jobs. It's a 4 megawatt project, 136 towers, and that's phase 1. We're already talking about phase 2, which could also go up into Clare County, which is great news. And then $20 million, American Mitsuba, which has been an automotive parts manufacturer, electric motors, primarily focused in the past on Honda and other Japanese makes. took on a new contract for BMW and Ford to make the same kind of electric motors. So that's where we've got about $120 million in new investment in a really tough year. So we think that that bodes well for the future. And, we're happy to distribute grant money for businesses that need it, but we're looking forward to getting past that and getting back to more traditional economic development and focusing on our base economy jobs and seeing those manufacturing and industrial jobs expand so we can have an overall growth in the economy. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover.
Well, it's great stuff. Tell me, you remember the days when tech transfer was the phrase we all used, right?
Right.
Do you guys appreciate much of that in your district?
Oh, yeah, we do. And, Central Michigan University and Saginaw Valley are up our way. And we've got some smaller colleges too. They're private and they do a great job in terms of the CMURC and the Smart Zone here too. That's another area where we've got a business incubator there, and we're spinning jobs out of that, and some new inventions have come out of that operation too. So definitely tech transfer. I should also mention we had another grant to finish off the Smart Zone broadband. MEDC supplied $100,000 to finish the broadband extension throughout the Smart Zone park, because that had not been completed, about half done a number of years ago. Now it's complete. So, we're trying to take advantage of every grant opportunity we can. But again, we are looking forward to the kind of traditional economic development we've done in the past. I also would mention that this area is becoming more of a food processing hub down in Gratiot County. That's out of our area. But I know Jim Wheeler could comment more on this, but the Zealand Farm Services Project, which is a huge project for soybean processing, and that's attracted other types of business to the area here involved in agricultural processing. So, we're looking at traditional manufacturing, tech transfer, as you say, but also ag processing is a big part of what we do in this area, and particularly at Greater Gratiot.
Jim, this may sound like an odd question during COVID-19, but there are still a lot of industries that can't get the people they want. Are you seeing any of that?
Yeah, we are. And it really helps to have CMU here and to have Mid-Michigan College, and we work so closely with them. We actually had had a coming home event last year to try to attract talent back to the area. But also, now we did a little different spin. We did the traditional thing with trying to attract talent back. But we also tried to address the senior graduating classes of all of our institutions here and get them to connect with employers. So the graduating seniors, especially in the area of engineering and the business school at CMU, could connect with employers looking for graduates. So that was very successful last year. This year, we couldn't do it in person. So we worked along with the Right Place and others to do a virtual event the week before Thanksgiving. And that went very, very well. We had a lot of participation. It's never as good as when you can do it in person, but of course we couldn't do that this year. But we're hoping by next Thanksgiving, we can get back to more of a traditional coming home event. So that's been a big success as well. We're always trying new things, and the Right Place really kind of pioneered this about 10 or 11 years ago, and they helped us get it started last year. And so we worked with them again this year on a virtual event.
Well, super stuff, Jim. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much for taking the time
Chris.
today.
Great to see you.
Appreciate it. All right, next up, we were fortunate to catch up a couple of days ago with what would be deemed the west side of the state. Birgit Close, President and CEO of the Right Place in Grand Rapids, and Jim Roby, who's the Director of Regional Economic Planning Services at W.E. Upjohn Institute. So with that, here's the report. Let's start with a little reflection on 2020, and then we'll move into forecast for 2021. So Birgit, if you'd like to kick it off.
Sure. as I said in my presentation earlier, so we rolled out our new strategic plan on February 2nd, I believe, and a month later, everybody went to work from home, right? And but we pivoted immediately, and reflecting on the difficulties of the last 9 months, it is still amazing to see the resilience of this region and the way it stood up when we needed to produce personal protection equipment. We have over 100 companies today that make shields, goggles, swabs, you name it. It was, so on reflection, it was a very difficult time. It continues to be difficult, but the resilience of our businesses was really heartwarming. And the way they stood up to pitch in and make things that we needed for our healthcare workers was amazing.
Quite well, and it took some resilience, innovation, et cetera, for any region to survive. And you guys kind of led the pack on that sort of a situation. Jim, what did you see in 2020?
Well, when we met at the Amway Grand a year ago, we were looking at the potential for a recession by the pundits, estimating 24 to 36 months out. In January, the first questions of COVID came, and they were supply chain. March 5th was the last time I gave in-person, actually 2 economic outlooks, and it was really supply chain could impact us somehow. 2 weeks later, we're at home. We hit one of the deepest fall off the cliff recessions in GDP in Q2. In Q3, we get one of the biggest growths we've had in GDP. So it's been nothing but a year of surprises with what has been one of the deepest and potentially one of the shortest recessions on record.
Well, so every bit as important, and maybe more important, is the economic outlook for 2021. So Birgit, if you kind of want to kick that off.
Sure. So remember that the right place works with our economic base employers. That is manufacturing, IT, food processing, health and life sciences. And we see a very positive picture in most of those sectors, right? Our Manufacturers Council had a meeting yesterday with our Information Technology Council. There's some really cool synergies going on. We're having job openings in the manufacturing sector. And I think that will continue, but we're having different. So talent remains an issue. On the flip side, and we look at the hospitality sector, which is not where we usually work, but where we have done over $10 million in small business grants for small companies in hospitality and personal service. And until we get this pandemic under control and we can go back to dining, we can go back to stay in hotels, that is a question mark in my mind, how long that's going to take. So we have a mismatch of companies growing and looking for folks and those that are still closed, and as Jim says, by rules and regulations, because the pandemic continues to rage. So it's a very, to me, a bifurcated picture.
You know, it's kind of interesting where the unemployment rate did not match up skill-wise with the number of people they needed not long ago. Now it seems to be which industries are thriving as to who needs people. Jim, 2021, give us your best shot.
Well, there's certainly a bunch of rate limiting factors going forward, but if you look at the positive factors, you look at new home and existing home sales, as well as price appreciation in the residential market being very positive. You look at the general recovery of consumer confidence by a couple different indexes, it's good. If you look at auto sales, like vehicle sales, as well as are very positive with very lean inventories actually for dealerships right now. I would argue the incentives were better a year ago than they are now. So if you look at the consumer, if you look at, as Birgit said, a number of industry sectors, it looks very positive. We are concerned particularly about some of the personal services areas, but until either people embrace the situation better, or maybe leadership at the state and local level is able to embrace this and reopen schools and reopen dining and those sorts of things that those are some of the rate limiting factors. How long will this continue? As Birgit has said multiple times this morning, this was thought to be a month, then maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, and now we're 9+ months into this. Will it end, and when can we get back to the new normal?
It's kind of interesting. Our Michigan Future Business Index just came out and it showed like pretty close to 50% of the companies still think things are going to be back and running. There's a light at the end of the tunnel in the next 12 months. And I know that's mostly small businesses. They're pretty optimistic anyway. If you had to give a grade to 2021, Birgit, what would be the best thing you could do? And I know there's a lot of variables here, but
There is a lot of variables. I'm not sure I can give it a grade, but I'd probably give it a B to a B minus, because there are some factors over which we have no control, right? I mean, we don't know if people are going to take the vaccine. We're all waiting for it. We're thrilled that it's coming, that American scientists developed it as quickly as they did. But now we have to also embrace taking it, right? So
that's true.
we have to embrace taking it, right? And so think of it like a flu vaccine, go take it. And that will obviously impact a key sector of our economy, which is that small business, that personal business, the restaurant, so that we can all go, because we're all chomping at the bit to go back out and be with our friends, right? And the quicker we can get that done, the quicker those companies will be in better shape.
All right, Jim, we got a B over here. You want to upper grade or what?
Well, I would say that this is a GPA question, that this is actually something from a report card. Manufacturing is an A. Consumers seem to be an A. Certainly the stuff that's going on in the hospitality sector is an F. We've seen recovery in healthcare in both necessary as well as elective things. So I think overall, I guess I go at a GPA with Birgit by looking at the average across the report card.
Yeah, so mine was an average because we're looking at such differences in recovery in our different sectors that it almost makes your head spin.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Well, this is a good, safe time to kind of grade on a curve anyway. So, hey, thank you both for joining us. We are very fortunate to have Birgit Close, President, CEO of The Right Place, and Jim Roby, Director, Regional Economic Planning Services with W.E. Upjohn Institute. Thank you both, not only for the time today and the information, but for what you do for that west side of the state on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's kind of interesting. First of all, thankful for their time and the presentation, but it's kind of interesting, a nice little segue as we move down the west side of the state, that they brought up the the COVID-19 situation, and this next section has a lot to do with how we're going to solve that problem. Ron Kitchen joins us now, Senior Partner and CEO of Southwest Michigan First. Has to be a little bit of a point of pride for you, Ron, that the solution seems to be coming out of your area. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And, I come to you directly from Vaccine City, USA.
There you go.
And so it is a point of pride. And, it isn't by accident. So if we look back at Pfizer, the reason the drug vaccine is being manufactured in Kalamazoo, one, we have great manufacturing capacity. We're Pfizer's largest global manufacturing center, but it's a 100-year legacy, 125-year legacy of drugs going back to the very first friable pill, which means the pill dissolves in your stomach, being invented in Kalamazoo by Dr. Upjohn. And so our history goes back a long way, but this plant, this vaccine was either going to be made here or made in Germany. But the decision was made 3 years ago. Under Governor Snyder, we had a piece of legislation called Good Jobs First that allowed major mega projects to get an incentive to come to to come to Michigan. And so FCA's new plant in Detroit was a beneficiary of that incentive. Pfizer's manufacturing plant here, and they made the decision to grow their vaccine businesses and their injectable business in Michigan because of that. So it shows the power of good legislation. It shows the power of public service and good incentives to create jobs. So we're proud of that. I'd love to take credit for it. We worked really hard on that legislation and getting that deal done. but it's the work you do yesterday that benefits you today. When we look at Kalamazoo and this region, it's hard not to be optimistic. So in February, our unemployment rate was 3.4%. We'd never seen numbers like that. You know, it's in graduate school. They told us 4% is full employment. So we're at 3.4% unemployment. Today in Kalamazoo County, we stand at 4% unemployment. We stand there with restaurants shut down, with hospitality functionally shut down, with our visitor projects functionally shut down. So we're feeling pretty good about it. If we look at our whole region, rural to urban, from Benton Harbor to Battle Creek, from Kalamazoo to the Indiana border, we're at 4.4% unemployed. And just to remind you, the state's at 5.1 and the Fed's at 6.1. So we're feeling very positive about where we are. We know manufacturing for us is thriving, and it's both things like the pharmaceuticals, both Pfizer and Zoetis, which is the spinoff company from Pfizer's Animal Health. Major expansion there this year as well. But things like paper, so graphic packaging has broken ground, is in the process of $600 million investment on the most state-of-the-art. I'm going to call it what they don't. I'm going to call it cardboard, but it's really the wrapping around cereal boxes, beer 12 packs, tissue boxes, that thin, hard cardboard. The most environmentally sensitive and the highest throughput in the world under construction here. Distribution is smoking hot. Major expansions by FedEx, 900 new employees had already broken ground before COVID. And so it opened up, got accelerated. What should have taken a year to build took 6 months because of the growth that was required. Major expansion by Target, which is their largest now Midwest distribution center. But, you know, we also know there's huge demand. So we look at all 392 MSAs in the nation. Kalamazoo ranks 11th in the most number of jobs being available. So we have huge demand for people. So we've got a little mix up of skill sets required to fill jobs, but we are very, very excited about where things are. Tremendous shortage in housing. No one's mentioned that yet. I know others are experiencing the same thing. We right now in Kalamazoo have a 1.1 month supply of housing, and Battle Creek's at 1.5 month supply of housing. Normal is almost 6 months. So we've got the ultimate seller's market, which isn't particularly healthy for the economy. So we need more houses built. We're seeing tremendous growth in small business startups, and several have mentioned that, so I won't go in, but for the same exact reasons, recessions create startups. We were able to assist about 1,700 companies with grants averaging $5,000 a piece. So we know the demand is real. And our big worry that keeping me up at night is when we get out of COVID, are we going to have the communities that we want? And restaurants and retail are a big part of what defines our community. If we don't do our best to save them, then we will not have the communities that we demand and that we're proud of. That's it from Kalamazoo in Southwest Michigan.
Well, that absolutely is not just it, because there's a lot more going on there. But unfortunately, we have to put you in a certain time zone. Ron, you've done a tremendous job down there for so many years, and we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Keep up the good work. Stability has always been a big thing in that Southwest sector. Tell me about, and let me hone in on this. Has the Kalamazoo Promise had the effect that it was intended to have?
Yeah, so if we go back 15 years ago, the Kalamazoo Public School District was losing about 10% of their students per year. And they, if we'll all remember, that was the time where emergency managers were being put into insolvent governmental units. And Kalamazoo was on its way to that. Post Kalamazoo Promise, we built 8 new schools because of the growth of the school district. We have, and I'll have the number wrong, we went from 1 or 2% of kids in high school taking college credit courses to now about 70% of kids are taking college credit courses. So we went from a place that had public education to a place that has lifelong learning.
Yeah.
And a commitment, and it was always been about community and economic development, not a free scholarship. And it truly is paying off.
Well, that also brought people in the community that were educationally oriented, which also challenges your education system and everything else. It's a real nice package.
It is.
Ron, again, thanks so much for being part of this.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, all.
There you go. Next up, we're going to go to mid-Michigan, where not just legislation is made. You're going to find that out. Bob Trezise, who is the CEO and president of LEAP, the Lansing Economic Area Partnership. Bob, let's go at it. And it's not as if I don't or haven't been aware of this.
Well, hi, Chris, and hi, everybody. Thank you to you, Chris, and the Michigan Business Network for putting the event today and bringing us all together statewide. I'm having a moment of enormous pride standing with my economic development colleagues from across the state. Michigan is known as having the best economic development professionals in the country. Maybe that's because our job is a little bit harder here versus the coasts in the South sometimes, Chris, but it makes for our work to be all the more productive. And standing with my colleagues today and listening to these forecasts is really an enriching experience. Next slide, please. So like everybody else at this point that you've really heard from, 2020 represented both a rewarding and an enormously heartbreaking kind of year. And yet I would say for me and all of my economic development colleagues, professionals across the state, this has been collectively our finest hour. Economic development is always imperative, but perhaps never more imperative than right now. And our job is to do 2 jobs, actually, which is to try to handle the current historic crisis, but also to make sure that we don't take our eye off the big picture, the ball, the economic development ball. And so we don't, the reason why that's so important is we don't want to allow a lost year or a lost year and a half turn into a lost decade. So the presentations you're hearing today to me are incredibly important. But like everybody else, LEAP, which represents Ingham, Eaton, and Clinton County, Greater Lansing, has had a big year. We somehow reconstituted our organization from a global marketing attraction effort and entrepreneurial organization to a small business emergency group. And we were able to deliver $7 million overall to small businesses, 50 employees and under across our 3-county area. We did it by putting together a team of 70 partners from across the 3-county area, local economic development organizations, institutions, LEAP members, I mean, everybody to make this work. But we also wanted to make sure that in our last round of grants, the 5.5 million restart grants, like all of my colleagues, we wanted to make sure that another historic error isn't made, which is leaving people behind, especially those that are historically and systemically been discriminated against over centuries. And so I am proud myself and all of our colleagues, we put in extra efforts to make sure that we're intentional in how these grants were awarded. We, for instance, hired 9 diversity, equity, and inclusion partners, and they really helped us build a pipeline to veterans, to persons with disabilities, to minority groups, to women. And 65% of all of those grants ended up being allocated to persons from underrepresented communities. Next slide. But so there was that work, but then there's, as I said, keeping our eye on the ball, and we continue to have major successes like my colleagues. We're focusing a lot on med tech and ag tech. And there's a big story there. I'll just leave it and to mention in passing. We lost two big projects. I do have to mention, we had 500 job projects with both Morley and Wayfair, which were IT sort of centers, call centers. And these were Wayfair in particular. We had spent 2 years competing for them. And, you know, those are projects that are gone. Both companies report, especially Wayfair, that they have found that their call centers work just as well in people's homes, and that they are probably never going to go back to some sort of centralized brick and mortar. We'll see. I predict there's going to be more of a hybrid of that life, but these were our bad announcements. But our good stuff is we have many projects that are underway. We have a huge construction project in Delhi Township that weirdly, we're still not allowed to announce what that actual project is. But we also have a contract with the city of Lansing, where their economic development department, and we did many major projects in the city this year. The Temple Club Capital City Market, which is a Meijer urban grocery store, and weirdly, a Chinese technology company, Continental Oceans Technologies. Glambia is the 5th largest company from Ireland, and they are now up in production up in St. John's, and will be the nation's largest dairy production facility. And then we're working on new projects. Last night, we got East Lansing to approve incentives for TechSmith Software's international headquarters. That's keeping 280 jobs, additional jobs. And we have a series of projects we've yet to announce, but these are all in the multiple hundred job kind of projects, and we're just in the final stages of getting those approved. Next slide. Yeah, and so we in addition to that, our pipeline for the first quarter of next year is as big as we've ever had. And like my colleagues, a lot of that is manufacturing, it's reshoring of medtech related kinds of companies. They all, because of the virus, are on very much fast tracks. In other words, what would typically take a site search a year, we had a company here on the ground from a foreign company yesterday. We're involved with what will all be major international type of announcements. They typically would take a year to put the project together, to go through the site search process. But all of them right now are saying we're going to make decisions by mid-January. So it's really exciting, and it's a big opportunity. Next slide. Next slide. And just really finally, so 2021 is to continue that work with the reshoring efforts in manufacturing, ag tech, med tech in particular. We need to shift, we're doing that right now with very expensive software, but completely shifting our attraction department to be one that is virtual reality oriented. And we also created a Department of Equitable Economic Planning, the DEEP, which is going to be very proactive and trying to permanently consider and work with underrepresented communities within the Lansing area to make sure that they're engaged with the economy and our economic development process. We have equity funds that we're working with and putting together. And so, in other words, both, as I said at the beginning, rewarding work and heartbreaking work, full of opportunity. I do think that we have a big chance in November, December of 2021 to just see the economy blast back in 2022 to be a historic, huge economic year for all of us. I do think that's somewhat dependent on how deep the hole is at that time. And so my personal opinion is federal and state, both relief and stimulus dollars at a very major scale are really required. If we do that right, we work together, be smart, be tough, and get through these next 6 to 8 months, you know, we can have a very shallow hole and really pop back pretty quick in the very, very late fall. But if we let these 6 to 8 months slip by without the appropriate support, I'm worried that the hole will be very deep and thus would take us longer to pop out. So very enthusiastic, and thank you for everybody's time. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all.
Hey, Bob, thanks so much for being here with us today, obviously, and the great work that you do in Mid-Michigan every day. The question slide that just popped up, I'll remind everybody, if they have a question for one of the speakers, you know, you can put it in the chat room here, or you can email it to Sarah at michiganbusinessnetwork.com. And we will post those on our website, the questions and the answers, at a later date. So let's move over to the Southeast sector at this point in time. And we're gonna talk with, we were fortunate to catch him yesterday, Tom Kelly, the Executive Director and the CEO of Automation Alley. We're going to find out what's happening in Southeast Michigan through the eyes of Automation Alley. Tom, of course, is the CEO of Automation Alley. And Tom, it's always good to see you and good to have you join us. How you doing?
Great to be with you again, Chris. I'm doing well.
Good, good. Well, let's hear how well. How are things happening and what are you seeing in that Southeast sector?
Well, so in Southeast Michigan, it's pretty much reflective of everything else that's happening around the state. 2020 was an awful year. Most manufacturers, which is my expertise, as you know, either held their own or contracted or fought to survive or all of the above in any given month, depending on how severe the pandemic was. But I think if you look today, right? So we look at the horrors that happened through 2020, personally, emotionally, business-wise, and you get to today. And what you find, Chris, is that the resiliency and the agility that has been demonstrated in the community is remarkable. Remarkable what we've achieved. And if you look at an unemployment rate that is, below 6%, this is Michigan, right? Michigan usually gets walloped in these scenarios. And I think it's a testament to the strength of manufacturing, right? And how quickly people were able to figure out, how can I work safely alongside others and still get my production done? That's unique in the country. We need to be extremely proud of what we've been able to do in Michigan in the manufacturing realm and for all businesses for that matter. So it's been a really difficult year. It's been a start-stop year. Culturally, we've been walloped upside the head because like we all figured out in our personal lives, which is, boy, I can do a whole lot of things digitally I never thought I could do before because I was forced to try. The same thing is happening in the business community. And while I'm disappointed because, I'm the biggest cheerleader for years saying, we got to digitize, we got to move faster. COVID was a wake-up call that says we weren't moving fast enough because those companies that actually digitized ahead of the crisis, they were able to skate through much better. In fact, some of them are actually thriving as opposed to withering. And so the lesson in this is digitization matters, and you cannot hide from the future. You cannot hide from technology. So I think that where we are today, we're actually positioned better than we think we are because we've learned so much. When you did your study, I'll say one last thing, and that is that in terms of talking about where we are, one of the things that disappointed me was people didn't view this in the community through your study as a learning opportunity. They said, what came out of all this? And learning opportunity was way down. And I say, no, learning opportunity was the highest it should be. You learn so much, you just don't realize it. And so, that's what I'd say about the past, and then of course, I'm very excited to talk about the future.
Yeah. So let's talk about the future because I was surprised at the numbers that came back through the MFBI that spoke pretty well of the future.
Yeah, well, and especially related to manufacturing. It's all going to focus around being digitally ready. So one of the exciting things that came out Tuesday from the Michigan Strategic Fund and the MEDC is we have announced a partnership with the MEDC to bring I-4O digital ready awareness to the entire state. So Automation Alley has always played in the Southeast Michigan pond, so to speak, and we are now going statewide because the MEDC recognizes how important Industry 4.0 is for everybody. And this crisis actually made it crystal clear that digitization, that understanding technology, that using tools that are given to us are going to be what propels us forward as a community, as a state. And we're pretty well positioned for that. So stay tuned for how we roll that out to tens of thousands of businesses around the state, right? There's 12,000 manufacturers. Our goal is to touch not only touch all of them, but measure that half of them say, I am very prepared for this digital revolution within 5 years. So it's a very tall order, it's a very heavy lift, but I think COVID has taught us we can actually get there. So we're pretty excited about where we're going.
So your feeling is pretty positive about the future, and that seems to be, at least anecdotally, what your membership is saying.
Yes, and don't forget, we're an AM hub, an advanced manufacturing hub for the World Economic Forum. And what they're telling us is this was a wake-up call for the world. And manufacturers around the world are trying to figure out, how do I be more resilient and more agile? Remember, Chris, we're both old enough to know that through the 90s, 2000s, 2010, it was all about low-cost production, sourcing as far away from America as you could get because we're so darn expensive. What we're hearing from the World Economic Forum, not just from America, but from all over the world's going to come back to us because resiliency and agility really matters. That's going to bode well for the next decade.
Well, and I'm going to be here and you're going to be here to welcome the world back. Great stuff.
God willing, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Tom Kelly, CEO and President of Automation Alley. It's always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for that update. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Yeah, thanks to Tom and of course to all of our presenters today. And I think as I look at my screen with all of you on it, I'd like to see a round of applause for all of our presenters who took a lot of time and gave us a lot of effort to bring this thing together. It's really good. We think this is really important and essential information. It helps you plan. It helps you understand where you fit in not only the whole state, but in your industry as well. And this is important information for all of us to go forward and plan from. So we want to thank everybody who had anything to do with putting this together. And also really pertinent, the AF Group, Accident Fund Insurance Company of America, who has sponsored this certainly for the last 12 years that I'm aware of. And I've been there since the beginning. So I think that's reasonably accurate. And of course, Paul King from ROI Insight. At any rate, thank you all so very much for being here. I want to thank my crew, who this is a great deal of work to put this together. Jeffrey Mosier, Mike Steibel, Wade Tong, and Sarah Mosier. Without those folks, it would be me here frantically looking for buttons to push. So I'm really thankful for our technology people. Our next virtual event is going to be in February, so look for that on our website. By the way, this thing in entirety will also be posted on our website. So if you want to go back there and rerun it or show it to people who weren't here today. The other piece is we want your feedback. Tell us how this went. Tell us if this format worked, because we're honestly thinking this may be a pretty permanent format. We're pleased the way we were all able to piece this thing together and nobody's information was more than 2 days old. So that's pretty hot off the press. So let us know how this went and post your questions too, because we will post your question and the answer in the next, if we can get the answers for them in the next 10 days on our website. So go there and visit again to take advantage of all that. In the meantime, obviously you mean a lot just by what you do and existing here in the state of Michigan from the standpoint of employing, the economic stuff that really makes us all a wonderful community to be in. So we're all grateful and we're all thankful for that. Keep up that good work. Have a safe and very healthy holiday season. And in the meantime, as always, have a very prosperous future. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you all in February.